Alrighty, good afternoon and good evening, team. This is our nonprofit training for our week 5, and this is for our MPA 593 by Eric Sandoval, and today is the 14th of June. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. So first and foremost, the nonprofit organization that I chose, for example, was the Boys and Girls Club. And then so here we'll be training for our nonprofit organization. So we want to help ensure that when we're training our the new team members, we want to let them know that the purpose of this is to help them ensure that they understand their governance responsibilities and how to protect the organization's tax exempt status under the section of 501(c)(3, as well as how to protect themselves from personal liability. But furthermore, we'll also dive into a lot of more important documents, uh, such as IRS requirements, financial reporting obligations, board responsibilities, and a lot more. Um, so go ahead and dive in. So a little bit of our articles and incorporations, bylaws. What this will help us do, they help us understand our foundational government documents. They help us define our mission structure as well as authority. And these are kind of the foundation of any nonprofit. So these kind of help the well, essentially articles as for those that are unaware, the articles of corporation, they're essentially filled with state and legally, with the state and legally establishes organization. I'm sorry, they better help define the organization's purpose, their name, their structure, but also more importantly, they include language limiting their organization's activities to ensure that they maintain the exempt purposes under the 501(c)(3). And then also the bylaws are the internal rules for how the organization operates. They help explain how board members are selected, but and how meetings are conducted, voting procedures, committee structures, and as well as officer rules. And essentially, all together, these kind of help ensure that the organization operates consistently, legally, and as well as transparently. But then at times we may ask ourselves, why are these important? Why do they matter? Well, they help us with the legal compliance, the decision making authority, and the accountability. So essentially, they're the legal safeguards, you can say. They help define what the organization can and cannot be doing. And also if the organization kind of acts outside of its stated purpose, then it'll risk losing its tax exempt status. But they also help establish, who has authority to make those decisions. So, but without all that, the organizations, they can face a lot of conflict, a lot of confusion, and a lot of legal disputes. So we got to be careful. And then we're diving in, as we dive a little more into it, then we have the IRS, right? So what is the IRS determination letter? So what this is, it helps confirm our status, and it's required for that tax exemption. So the IRS is essentially, that letter is a proof that the organization's been approved of that tax exempt status. So it's critical because it allows the organization to receive the tax deductible donations and be able to apply for many different types of grants. But it also helps confirm that the organization has met those requirements from the IRS, as such as operating for charitable, educational, or religious purposes, and just not operating for to benefit private individuals. So that's important. But then also we have our 501(c) structure. So that's our public charity versus private foundation. We must know this. This is also our tax exempt status. So that essentially a organization that falls under that category, it's in two main categories. One is public charities, and the second one is private foundations. Now, most nonprofits are public charities, so that means that they receive a lot of broad public support, such as through donation, grants, or services. But a private foundations are typically funded by a single source, such as a family or a corporation, and they have a lot more stricter rules and high excess taxes. But most importantly, regardless of the type, we must be mindful that all 501c3 orgs must operate exclusively for tax exempt purposes and cannot distribute profits to individuals. So something to be extremely mindful. Being able to help understand this distinction helps the board members just ensure that we're compliant with IRS and transparent in funding and our operations. But as we go in and further into it, then we dive into more forms. Then we have our Form 990 and our financial reporting. So what is this? It's the annual IRS filing. It's for financial transparency. It is a public document. So and that's filed annually. It helps provide detailed and financial information, revenues, expenses, salaries, program spending, and this is publicly available. You can find this on many of nonprofit organizations. Um, uh, Also, like meaning donors, regulators, and it's for public review. So this helps with accuracy and transparencies, and it's essential. So board members have a fiduciary duty to review that and understand those financial reports, ensuring that the funds are being used appropriately and are in alignment with the organization's mission. But then we have a lot of board liability. So we have our fiduciary duty, legal responsibility, our risk exposure. So these are three cores, essentially, of the fiduciary duties. We have the duty of care, duty of loyalty, and the duty of obedience. So essentially, the duty of care is to help make informed decisions, and the loyalty is just putting the organization's interests above personal interests, and obedience is to follow the laws and the governing documents. But and within any nonprofit organization, we have risks. There's always key risk areas. We have our UBIT, we have our lobbying limits, our political activities, we have gaming rules. So there's several compliance that can create those risks for nonprofits. And then being able to um, be having the UBIT or others when it applies, when a nonprofit earns income from activities that are not related to its issues. The lobbying is, the limited amounts, but excessive lobbying can threaten that tax exempt status. The political activity is strictly prohibited, so a 501c orgs cannot support nor oppose the political candidates. And activities like raffles or gaming may also regulate required proper reporting. So we just got to be careful with these. And then we have our charitable deductions and donor trust. One of the key benefits of that status is the donations are tax deductible, but this requires strict compliance with the IRS regarding documentations and the proper use of those funds. So organizations must issue accurate donation receipts and ensure funds are used for charitable purposes only. So we want to maintain that transparency, help build donors' trust, and strengthen long-term financial stability. And then ultimately, our best board practices, um, you know, effective nonprofit governance depends on informed and responsible board leadership. We want to remember that board members should be familiar with governing documents, actively review financial statements, and ensure compliance with IRS regulations. We want to avoid conflicts of interest and maintain transparency. All that's essential for protecting both the organization and our tax exempt status. Okay, so strong governance ensures that nonprofit can continue serving its mission effectively and sustainably. Thank you all for listening. Thank you.